You are not the voice in your head. And that might sound strange at first, because most of us have spent our entire lives believing that we are. You know the voice, the one that is the commentator, the judge, the planner, the critic, the warrior, and the storyteller. So we assume that's who we are. But if we start to look at this closely, we might notice something strange. Let's do an experiment. You can hear my voice right now. You can also hear the voice in your own head. So now just say something to yourself internally. Could be something around you or just a hello to yourself. I'll give you a moment to just do that. So now there's an interesting observation. If you can hear the voice, how can that voice be you? So for example, you can see a desk, but you're not that desk, right? Intuitively, if we can observe something, we must be distinct from it. So if you can observe a thought, it cannot be you. So this poses a question. If we can notice our thoughts, then who's doing the noticing? And once you notice that, something else becomes clear. So we do have an inner narrator in our head, which seems to somewhat be in our control, but not fully. So how many times does the inner narrator instantly come up with judgments and associations of things without our conscious effort? So for example, thoughts appear automatically, associations form instantly, anxiety can arise around certain places, and our judgments can arise without effort. So how much control do we really have over our thoughts? They appear, disappear, and change constantly. And yet, we still assume that they are us. So what is this inner voice then? Well, I believe it's a tool. It's a learned pattern and it's a storyteller. It's simply a survival tool for us to make sense of the world. It has many functions. It helps us survive, plan, learn, avoid danger, and predict the future. So for example, you might get burned by a stove and you'll know not to do it again. Or learn behaviors. You might see someone get shocked by an electric fence, so you'll now know not to touch that fence. So the inner voice is pretty useful, but it isn't always truthful, and it's also not there to bring us peace. It was never meant to be our identity. So it is difficult to let this sink in because we've identified with this our entire lives, and we've let our story be narrated by this for years. So another way to look at this is that your thoughts change constantly. For example, from childhood to adulthood. So you used to get so excited over finding bugs on the trees and jumping in puddles. But now, well, those things no longer interest you. Or your opinions can change. Maybe you used to hate playing sport, but now you love it. You could have old fears disappearing or new fears appearing. So maybe you used to have a fear of public speaking, but now you do it as confidently as ever. Or personality shifts. Maybe you used to stay indoors all the time and you hated the outdoors, but now you love to go on hikes every week. So you know that your thoughts can change, and they have. And yet, we also know intuitively that we have had some continuity of who we are. We know that some essence of ourselves is always there throughout our life, and therefore, that cannot be our inner voice or our thoughts. So I know what you might be thinking now. Who cares? We've been living like this our entire lives. What's with the paradigm shift? Well, that's because identifying with our inner voice is the root of all our suffering. If you believe that inner voice is you, then every negative thought becomes personal. Every fear becomes manifested because you're the fear. Every craving becomes urgent and every insecurity becomes truth. So you don't suffer because of your thoughts. You suffer because you believe that they are you. So instead of experiencing our thoughts, we become controlled by them. So who are we? We're the awareness that notices the thoughts. We're the space in which the sensations, emotions, and thoughts appear. We're the thing that was here before our current thought started, and the thing that will be here after it disappears. The true self is what remains after the noise falls away. Once I realized this, it led me to another interesting thought about how we experience life. So most people, we assume the experience of life comes from the outside world or the material reality around us. So therefore, we think the solution to life is just to change the material reality around us. And this includes things like money, where you live, your job, the weather perhaps, or your relationships. But to be fair, those things do matter. If you fall down the stairs and break your legs, you obviously will feel a lot of pain. But there's another force shaping your experience just as much, and that's your inner voice. So for example, the same meal can taste better when you're in a good mood. The same environment can feel different depending on your thoughts. So our experience of life isn't just shaped by the outer world. is also shaped by our inner world interpreting it. But earlier, we realized something important. The inner voice isn't actually us. So maybe we have some power over it. In a way, it's like we're playing a character in a game. The character has a name, a personality, circumstances in the world, and a voice in its head. And we spend our entire lives believing that we are the character and its narration. But that's not actually true. What if we're just the awareness experiencing the character? We're just experiencing the world around the character as well as the thoughts running through its mind. Think of it like a video game. In a game, you have a character, and the character has a name, a personality, goals, a story, and they move through the world and experience things. But you don't actually think that you are the character. You know that you're the one playing it. You're the one experiencing everything that happens to it. So like in a game, the character can feel stressed, scared, excited, but you're the player. You're just experiencing those states. So when you realize the voice in your head isn't you, then you don't have to believe everything it says, right? You don't have to reinforce every story it tells. You can question it, you can ignore it, you can choose which thoughts deserve your attention. Most people spend their whole lives just trying to change their outer world, but they never realize they also have influence over the inner world that shapes their experience. So maybe we don't suffer because our thoughts exist. We suffer because we believe we are those thoughts. And once we realize that, the voice in your head stops being who we are and just becomes another experience. And the moment we truly embody that, we stop being controlled by every story our mind tells us, and we find true freedom.